in Chicago, if you order in Spanish, you get free stuff because none of the Mexican restaurants are mad at you for trying to speak their language. It is a sign of respect, and they appreciate it. So when I go in, I say, "Hola, mi amigo, dos tacos de pollo, por favor, más crema, y avocado or whatever, guacamole." And then they smile and they say, "Yeah, you're trying, buddy." And then they give me free chips.
Yeah.
I learned this when I was 16, and because on the south side of Chicago, you have Mexican restaurants everywhere, and I went with my friend, and she was just like, "Let me order," and she ordered in fluent Spanish. And when they came out, they brought chips, guac, sour cream, salsa, and beans and cheese. And then I was like, "Oh, did you order that?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "They just gave you all that stuff for free?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's what happens when you order in Spanish." And I was like, "Shut up."
Tim Pool with the great story there. Like, he's so good at the little vignettes or, these little filler stories. We're back with Timcast IRL. Brett Dasovic's on there, the homie from Pop Culture Crisis with Mary Morgan. Let's go. Let's hear what they're going to talk about. They're going to eventually get into, if you're a Dave Pakman fan, you're going to hear a little subtweet comment, and it's coming from Tim Pool. It's not going to be complimentary. And we'll listen to that out, and let's flesh it out on After Show Carnage. Let's go.
So then I was at a Mexican restaurant on the north side, and I was like, "I'm going to order in Spanish." And that's the joke, dos tacos de pollo. And then they gave me free chips and sour cream and dip. And I was just like, I was like, "Hey, I didn't order that." And they were like, "Oh, you're good, man." And I was like, "What?"
And now you're the gringo guy.
And speak,
you're trying to.
People appreciate from other countries you trying their language.
Yeah. But to say that we should have a national language is not to disparage someone else or another culture. It's simply saying everyone in America should be able to understand each other and communicate with each other. If you're going to live here, you should assimilate. You can speak whatever language you want at home. You can, and if you in your neighborhood there are it's predominantly another language that's spoken, that's fine too. But when it comes to interacting in the broader society, there should be it should be English. And again, when I was growing up, it used to be it was when this idea was first becoming taboo, right? There like I remember SOD had a record called Stormtroopers of Death had a record called Speak English or Die. And that was in the early 90s.
Wow.
And that was not particularly edgy. It was a little on the edgy side, but it wasn't super edgy. But then after, a few years after that came out, people started to say, "Oh, that's kind of, maybe you shouldn't." But it's not about demeaning anyone else. No. It's about making sure that everybody in America has a shared understanding of the world that we live in. And Tim's point about language dictates is like an operating system. That is such a great way to describe it, because it really is the word. We think in words, and if we don't have words for things, we can't comprehend it. I don't think there's a word for snow in Hawaiian. They don't need it.
I've heard that. I assume that's true because many of them have never seen it. But my understanding is that in French, there's a phrase or word for, it's described as the feeling that you get when you look down from a great height and want to jump, but no, you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I was reading about one African culture that has a word for the feeling you get when you look at a woman or when you look at a person that you deeply love, but you know that they're looking at someone else who they love and care about, and that you'll never have them. And it's like, for us to convey that idea, I had to say all that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really funny sometimes when you're watching a show with subtitles, and the guy will go like blah 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 blah, and then underneath it says sit down.
Yeah.
And you're like, because they don't have the same way of conveying that idea as simply as we do. Well, let's jump to this next story from the Daily Wire. Trump revokes Biden's security clearance, cites poor mental acuity. Joe, you're fired. I almost couldn't believe this when I heard. We're set at the show, and Kellen was like, "Hey, they revoked Biden's security clearance." And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I think you said, did you just tell him he was fired? And then you pull up the tweet, and it's like literally says, "Joe, you're fired."
Kellen was like, "You're fired, Joe." And I was like, did he actually say you're fired? So here's what Trump said. There is no need for Joe Biden to continue receiving access to classified information. Therefore, we are immediately revoking Joe Biden's security clearances and stopping his daily intelligence briefings. He set this precedent in 2021 when he instructed the intelligence community to stop the 45th president of the United States, me, from accessing details on national security, a courtesy provided to former presidents. The Her report revealed that Biden suffers from poor memory and even in his prime could not be trusted with sensitive information. I will always protect our national security. Joe, You're fired. Make America great again. Wow.
Good.
One of the best examples where the people on the left will be really mad that he did this, not understanding that they did this to him first, because they'll expect the Republicans to just lie over and play dead.
Yeah, Independent writes that he did it as revenge against his predecessor, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't care.
Then what did his predecessor do? His predecessor was just getting revenge too.
I mean, right. Biden is genuinely unwell.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think even the left, some of the left recognizes this. He's not coherent.
Oh, they all recognize it. They just been lying the whole time. And it's like, what's really crazy? At a certain point, I genuinely do not understand how people watch Brian Tyler Cohen or David Pakman or even to a certain degree like Cenk Uygur. I understand the Young Turks have been like, we're populist and we understand. But I'm like, how does any sane person literally say, I want my tax dollars going to like pottery classes in Morocco? Like, this is the craziest thing about it. How are there people who are actually watching these shows where they're like, how dare Trump shut down the sending of our tax dollars to Morocco for pottery classes? And it's like, do you really want that?
Tim has a point here. David Pakman fans, Cenk Uygur fans, anybody on the left is basically saying that. Outside of, I don't know, the Revolutionary Blackout Network, I don't think they're for, from my understanding, Nick Cruz is not for this USA ID. So he's a rare one. Same with Jimmy Dore. But all these other ones, I think Sabby Sabs is against it too, if I'm not mistaken. But all these other ones, they're defending the money. They're saying, well, it's a small percentage of the money. David Pakman fans are saying, basically, we're talking about, and I don't like that this is being locked into USAID. It's coming from the State Department. It's coming from all over the place in the executive branch. So all this money is being appropriated from Congress to the executive branch or independent agencies, but I don't want to get off on the tangent there. Let's talk about the executive branch. There's no such thing as an independent agency. That's why I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to get too far off on the tangent. But they're appropriating money, meaning they're giving them a limit of money to spend. The cap is for USAID, I don't know what it was, but the Congress caps it off and USAID spends it. They don't have to spend all the money that Congress appropriates to them. That's common sense. So somebody has to decide whether you spend it or not. It's in the executive branch. If the president doesn't make the decision, then we have a rogue agency. It's just a fourth branch of government. Who is the one that chooses? Just some independent person? So that money is going to silly things like rainbow theaters in a foreign country. And they can't defend it. So they say, well, it's only a small percentage of the overall budget. I agree, Elon Musk, and that's not his real goal, is not cutting the budget until you get to the real money. I agree. But if it's not a lot of money, then why are you worried about it? Then why don't you say, okay, cut it? You're still not doing anything. That's not their take, though. So tell me where Tim's wrong, guys. Tim has a point here. I'm not going to blanket say that about David Pakman fans, because David Pakman has some good points at times, especially, years ago he was better, but he still has some good points now. I just did a reaction to David Pakman a while back on Pete Hegseth being confirmed, and it was a great segment from him. So I'm not going to knock him completely, but they do twist, and Tim does the same thing too. These people, it's the algorithm. You're listening to After Show Carnage. You're a special type of person, because I don't lock into. I'm wearing Ultra MAGA here, but the way I rock MAGA is not the way you see it with the red and this goofy, pro funny country, unliving innocent people. I don't rock with all that. So you're with the unique. I support universal basic income. I support Medicare for all, universal health care. So I'm a unique one where I just have the take. But that's not good for the algorithm. So that's why Tim in the background has Trump shoes. Tim's a classic liberal skateboard dude. For the algorithm, that doesn't work. Tim, it just doesn't work. You have to be like, rah, I'm MAGA. And the people keep coming back to your channel for that. And me, I'm just like, I can't do that. So whoever comes back, comes back. But the reason I'm saying that is Tim is going to be whacked sometime. David Pakman is going to be whacked sometime. Destiny's going to be whacked sometime. Destiny's going to be great sometime, because they're fitting into the algorithm. These algorithms are really criminal.
Do you think a lot of them are even realizing that, or they just buy these narratives that Elon Musk is shutting this stuff down to enrich himself or commit identity fraud, which are these weird arguments that they're making?
Well,
They're claiming that
I agree. Those are terrible arguments.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think you're
Elon
actually
stole
thinking
the treasury.
That he's stealing the money or identity fraud. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You give your social security number to people at the DMV or whatever. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And there's laws already against taking that data and using it for something else. So if you want to say Elon could take that data and use it for X or Tesla or whatever else, and there's laws against it, how would we know if he used it for Tesla? You would have to change the laws. Right now, they're private companies. X, Tesla, all of them are private companies. So we really wouldn't know unless there was a whistleblower if he took data from what he's getting now straight from the Treasury or wherever and used it on those companies. So if you really were concerned about that, you would say, well, we need transparency with these companies, just like you're trying to do with TikTok in a way.
Data.
I think you're thinking about it a lot deeper than the average person who complains about stuff like this. I think most of them never make it past the headline.
Right. But if your argument is that the people who watch David Pakman are dumb as a box of rocks, I'll agree with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even going that far. I'm saying just the people who think in memes and don't really think beyond the headline. I don't think they're actually thinking that far down, because they would have to actually read the data on where a lot of this money is going. But do you remember when the girl, what was the program for Pakistan that came out like last year? It was like $10 million to study gender in Pakistan or something like that.
Yeah, it's all over.
And
Those studies in Pakistan, it was 12 million in the omnibus.
The point is like we see stuff like that and we get annoyed because we know that these omnibus bills are packed with pork, and we understand that this kind of crap comes and goes. But the average person, they just trust a lot of people, they just trust the government when it's Democrats.
So what you're saying is, according to this chart, your average David Pakman viewer would be a 5, and your average Timcast viewer would be a 1.
Look, I make it at least.
Which chart is this?
I've met people that literally cannot like draw or picture visualize an apple. I met somebody, they say some people don't have an inner voice.
Wait, what?
That's just the wildest.
Wow.
That's actually a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a lot.
They think in like abstracts and content. That's crazy to me.
I don't. What? I've heard Tim talk about that before. I'll just stop the take here. Do you know anything about that? Please comment if you do. You don't have an inner voice? I might be crazy, man, because me and my inner voice, we be squaring up. Boy, I'd be like, Lizzo released this promo for a video where she was like crying and then started laughing, where people called her schizo. Man, I might be crazy, man, because me and my inner voice, man, we be like, come on now, let's hash this out. I don't even know how that works, man. How do you not? I don't even understand. I don't even agree. I don't even think that's true. I don't think it's true that you can not have an inner voice. But I didn't think about taking it to this place, but that's my big takeaway here. Somebody tell me, is it really possible? If you don't have an inner voice, tell me. Tell me how you operate. I don't know how that works.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.